All right, now, everybody. Quiet, listen to me. We're going to start a show. Now, some of you people have been with me before. You know it's going to be a tough grind, but we're going to have a show.
And hello, and apologies for launching a couple of minutes late here for the live audience. Most people don't watch the show live, but the people who do watch the show live are devoted and, might I say, loved by all of us. So I apologize. I had to get my credibility glasses on. I couldn't find them, Albert. I blame you for that.
Albert, thank you.
I don't know why I couldn't find my credibility glasses. They were missing. Albert, have you tweeted that the show's on the air, though, at the extra moments that you had prior to the start of things?
The problem with not having your glasses, Mark, is that you don't have your glasses on. You can't see. So
that is the problem. Have you had a chance to tweet, sir, that we're on the air?
I'm working on that right now.
I just felt like even if we start late, it is still not enough time for people to get stuff. Kim is here.
Kim, how are you?
And I've got a really great show. Rothmann in. There is bad news in MAGA land. Big dumping of money will end up in the Joe Biden camp from a powerful PAC, but there might be bad news for Biden as well. So I'll talk to John Rothmann about that in the noon hour. It has been almost 24 hours since we've had a Pulitzer Prize winner on, and so we must rectify that with a Pulitzer Prize winner who will make an appearance. Rectify is a ding word. Thank you. And Michael Hiltzik, the business columnist for the LA Times, such great insights. I want to talk to him about, honestly, the future of journalism. As we've seen ad-supported, generally legacy media, newspaper, radio, television, all damaged in the move toward digital. But specifically newspapers, because that's where you see a lot of the heavy lifting being done from an investigative standpoint. I was looking at the LA Times today, knowing that Hiltzik was going to come on, and we have a short about the loss of the LA Times and how they've had to lay everybody off, and I was talking and lamenting the fact anyway that journalism is changing, and journalism, a lot of journalism and the work that's done by journalism is vanishing. And because there just isn't the money to support investigative work, long-form journalism, this sort of thing. And I got blowback from all these people going, the LA Times is a bunch of libs. If they wouldn't report that lib stuff, they would be, just a blast of that. So I started reading the LA Times like, where in there is their lib stuff? Only on the opinion page. If you're not on the opinion page, then it's stuff that's happening in the community and nationwide and worldwide. I defy you to find me a slant that's lib. Happy to own it if it's there. Yeah. I just don't see it. So Hiltzik will talk about this clear, I would suggest, inexorable flow toward the end of journalism on the printed page and how the digital world has taken it over. And so inexorable, is a ding word. So anyway, Hiltzik will be here in the next hour. So we have Rothmann at the bottom of this hour with analysis on politics. Hiltzik at the beginning of the next hour. It's hard to think that we can improve upon that, but we will. And then I have a major announcement. Should I make the major announcement now, Albert? Before Spencer? I don't like to keep Spencer waiting too much longer. What do you think?
We can do it after Spencer, right?
Okay.
After Spencer.
Major announcement after the great Spencer joins us. So,
The Mark Thompson Show.
There is rain moving onto the West Coast. In fact, it's already hitting northern parts of California. Kim has her umbrella out.
Not
and
just
this
my
guy,
umbrella, my
he
KGO
is.
umbrella. Woo!
Oh, very nice. A KGO umbrella. Check that out. KGO is the radio station from which this show launched. So if you're wondering and you're new to things, that's what KGO is all about. Mm-hmm. It was a powerhouse talk radio station, news-oriented talk radio station in San Francisco, and it went away, and we took that entire platform here to YouTube. But the guy who is our North Star when it comes to the weather is the longtime Good Morning America weather guy, now on Channel 7 in San Francisco. How about it for the great Spencer Christian?
Yay!
Everybody's got an umbrella. I love it.
It's an umbrella kind of day here in the Bay Area.
This is the case. Spencer Christian, before I reminisce with you, as I like to, about the golden days of broadcasting, and you were top of the heap there in New York, and then you went on to the network, working with all the network luminaries.
Yes.
Let's talk about weather first, though. So there is rain. This is a pretty big rain event, is what I was reading. Maybe you can set us straight on how big it is, how much snow, that kind of thing.
Okay, well, Mark, the rain has already begun to fall here in the Bay Area, but at the moment, it's mainly light to moderate rain. We expect wave after wave of heavy rain going into the afternoon and evening hours. And I mean, once it starts to get heavy shortly afternoon, it may remain intense until as late as 9 o'clock tonight. So obviously, there's great concern here for flooding and landsliding, all that sort of thing. You know, at ABC 7, we have the storm impact scale. We rate storms.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
5, a numeric scale from 1 to 5. 1 is a light storm, and 2 is a moderate storm. This one today is a level 3, which is considered a strong storm. And not only is there going to be heavy rainfall for hours and hours, but strong gusty winds up to 45, 50 miles an hour. So
wow.
saturated soil, we might see trees down and power outages and all that sort of thing.
So how long does this continue, this pattern of wave after wave?
Well, the wave after wave of heavy rain, steady rain, will probably last about 8 to 9 hours. So basically from right around noon to maybe as late as 9 p.m. Then after that, tomorrow and Friday, we expect lighter rain and scattered showers. But it looks like tomorrow's light rain, maybe more on the moderate level. So on that numeric scale, 1 to 5, this will be a level 2 tomorrow. And I think the reason for that is not so much the intensity of the storm tomorrow, but the soil will already be so saturated, and there will already be some localized flooding going on from today's rain, that whatever falls tomorrow will have a level 2 impact, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and in fact, isn't that what it's all about? I mean, after a drenched region is drenched long enough, it doesn't take much to produce a lot of the problems that you've been talking about, like mudslides and the like. That's
true. And we actually expect, Mark, periods of rain every day for the next 7 days, which is really concerning, because you know how it is. Once the ground is saturated, all kinds of crazy things can happen.
It's strange to be in a situation where we so desperately need the rain. We so desperately need the snowpack. Well, the snowpack's been really good.
Oh, yeah.
But then when we get the rain, go, well, but we don't need 7 continuous days of it. I mean, it's right. It is weird. We have this relationship with nature that is a very sensitive one. So, but as I say, the snowpack is pretty good. So as we get into the really heart of the winter months here, we're positioned to have an okay year in terms of the drought, in terms of water needs.
Oh, I think so. Yeah, we're almost certainly will have an okay year in terms of drought and water needs. Snowpack should be okay, but there was some concern early in the season when our first 2 storms were warm storms. They weren't cold enough to produce significant snow in the Sierra. But the last one we had was losing track of storms now. I guess last weekend produced a couple of feet of snow in the higher elevations of the Sierra. And this current series of storms is likely to produce several feet of snow as well. So the snowpack situation should be okay as long as the storms don't go back to the warm pattern.
Yeah, it's weird because the Pineapple Connection, as it's called, or they're always the Pineapple Express, Pineapple Connection,
Atmospheric
River. Thank you.
Yeah.
When I first saw Atmospheric River, I thought, well, I don't remember Atmospheric River really being a thing when we were coming up, Spencer.
No, it wasn't. I mean, as you mentioned, the Pineapple Express was the thing, right?
Yeah.
That long trail or plume of moisture from basically out of the area of Hawaii.
Yeah. I thought actually it was a better branding because it was implied, the Pineapple Express or Pineapple Connection, that it was coming from the tropics, Right. But Atmospheric River they rebrand it because it suggests a big river of rain, which also works, I guess, if you're just looking at the bottom line, you know. But it's funny to hear, funny to hear things rebranded like that.
Yeah, I every day almost I have to go into the newsroom and explain to the writers or producers who write the copy for the anchors to read that we're not getting a series of atmospheric rivers. They think every storm now is an atmospheric river, and I keep trying to explain to them like a seventh grade science teacher that these individual storms travel on that river of moisture, but each storm is not a river in itself. But they keep so every day now. Video the teleprompter that the anchors are about to read. I say, wait, it's not a series of rivers.
This future cast, which you now see all the time.
Yeah.
Like this is what the radar is going to look like. This is what we have up right now on YouTube. This is in the Bay Area. You can see San Francisco, Oakland, San Rafael, etc.
Yeah.
That future cast, when Spencer and I were coming up, we didn't have any future cast. There was no such thing as future cast. Now these guys, all the kids now coming up, all the meteorologists in their tight outfits and in their super handsome, jagged jaw lines as they lean in, they all just throw up these cool graphics. We didn't have that, Spencer. We did not have it.
We just had to be good at what we did.
Thank you.
Why are you yelling?
It was, I'm filled with bilious rage and resentment.
Why are you yelling?
But it's true. Do you remember, Spencer Christian? Then I'll let you go.
Yeah, no, it's okay.
We had a black and white satellite picture. Okay,
Right.
That's all we had. It was like a thing that would come off of this fax machine thing. And you had to, at least I did, back in Buffalo, New York, I had to, there was some kind of wax thing or something you put on the back of it, and then that would flatten it out. It was something with like an iron.
That's right.
And then you put it on an easel, okay? And then the camera shot that satellite image on that easel, but it would come up behind you on the chroma key.
Right.
You know what I'm talking? I mean, it was as
that's like it was a still image, not a moving image. Like
that's right. It was a still black and white image.
And we
It's
only
like
got it twice
broadcast
a day.
history museum stuff right there, you guys. I don't
Yes.
know.
This is television history.
Yeah,
This is what, but this is the point. Spencer and I, we forged careers with little more than an ability to BS the audience, ladies and gentlemen. That was right.
I hate for us to sound like a couple of old timers, in my day. But seriously, in our day, you had to present information that was useful and compelling, and you had to present it in a compelling manner so
That's
people
right.
would want to pay attention to you. We didn't have all that fancy graphic stuff.
No, it's true. It's very true. I always say if you don't have a weather person who's dynamic or much personality or good, particularly at communicating the information, then you can lean on the graphics, the 3D graphics and all the rest. That will more than make up for whatever deficiencies there might be with the personality. But if you've got a big personality, somebody who can communicate the information well, somebody who has that dynamic, turn down the graphics because they distract almost from that weather person. And now, of course, the weather is just it's a show. I mean, it's an incredible, PowerPoint presentation with all these moving things. And Doppler radar came in. Who said this is a couple of old farts? Who said that? It's true. It's true.
And we're proud of it.
Yeah. But it is, we came up forged by hardship. I'll just put it that way. Yeah, Spencer.
That's true. That's so
all right.
true.
So when can we see you, the last word on weather in the Bay Area and in California, sir?
Okay, so today I will be on at 3 p.m. We have a 3 p.m. newscast. I'll be on at the top of that show for about 5 or 6 minutes. And then again on the 4 o'clock news, which is a 1-hour newscast, I'll probably have 4 separate appearances in that newscast. The first one, of course, right at the top of the news, top of the hour, 4 o'clock, for about a 4.5 minute recap of everything that's happening today and with the storms to follow.
I remember when the weather got really bad. This is in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
And I would come in. I'd say to the producer, what do you want? When am I going to be on? Just what I've asked you. And he said, I've got you in the A block, in addition to your regular C block weather.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And he said, and so in the A block, you'll have 90 seconds. And then he looked up at me. I'll never forget it. And he looked at me and said, so get out there and scare the hell out of them.
That's what they want us to do.
That's what they want. That'll get the clip. All right, Spencer, we love you. Thank you, my friend. And,
anytime. If you need me again tomorrow, just let me know.
Okay, we love it. Thank you so much, man. Right. Very generous. See ya. Spencer Christian, everybody. Yeah, I love it.
The Mark Thompson Show.
I think I first saw Mark Thompson doing weather on Kron back in the 80s. Yeah, that was it. Those are the golden days. There was a map that we had at Kron. It was maybe you can take that Spencer thing off. Thank you. There was a map that they had of the temperatures. Okay, now you see the temperatures, how they all animate on, they come out of the ground and all that stuff. That literally didn't exist when I was coming up as a weather guy, right? And so the head of the art department at Kron was NBC then, KRON they were called, and she made a deal, and you can look this up. It's pretty high profile what happened. I have to say she was a trailblazer. She met with a group called Pacific Data Images, PDI, right on the peninsula.
Google it.
Yeah. And Pacific Data Images, they did a bunch of different animation stuff. They animated at tremendous cost. They animated our temperature maps. And so the temperature maps we used, they were probably the most expensive temperature maps in the country. And they were first developed, and there were no animated maps at the time there in San Francisco at Kron through Pacific Data Images. And Pacific Data Images was then, I think, purchased by Pixar or merged with Pixar, and they are part of the Toy Story. Yeah, all that Toy Story animation, all that came through them. Same people who did our maps at Kron. Jim Shields said, I saw in a documentary that weather people would have to write temperature backwards in the glass in the 60s. Yeah, there were people who did that. That's absolutely right. All right, fun stuff now.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Now that you know there is major stuff going on in California, we'll watch that weather situation for you. So many of our listeners and viewers are in California. And we do have a
major announcement from the Mark Thompson Show. A major announcement.
This is pretty big. Right when we got off the air yesterday, something happened which is extraordinary. We passed 20,000 subscribers on this show.
Woo-hoo!
Yeah.
We didn't just pass it. We roared past it. Look at that.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. It was odd how we were at 19.6 for a while, weren't we, Albert? I felt like we were at 19.6 for a couple days.
Yeah, like in that range, and then
and then all of a sudden,
our Lord and Savior David K. Johnston,
Albert, thank you.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, his video from yesterday actually has 275,000 views.
Wow.
Yeah.
So
David K. Johnston's video within 4 hours had 160,000 views, and then the next 4 hours more, and the next, as Albert says, and I think that's what propelled this show to where we are, 22,723 subscribers.
Yeah, we just got two in the past couple of minutes or past few seconds. People are subscribing right now. This is the live subscriber count. So
Calvin Wong, the
right
shadow
now,
producer,
that number will go up.
Yes, if you subscribe right now, the numbers will. You can move those numbers up. Congratulations, Mark. Keep up the hard work, says Kelly. Thank you, Calvin. Thank you, Kelly. Thank you, everyone. Mostly, I would thank the people who've kept us on the air. Those are primarily Patreon and PayPal subscribers or supporters. It's not technically a subscription there, but that support is everything. I mean, we would not be here without you. TheMarkThompsonShow.com. Click Patreon or PayPal. The links are there to join that community of supporters. And it means so much. So just to spend a second on this, because I'm just learning this along with everybody else, the number of subscribers is important because if there are more subscribers on your channel, I believe you'll show up in more feeds. Mm-hmm. And I also think that your your ad revenue may increase. So, we have very little ad revenue. We do get it from YouTube. It's important. And without it, I don't think we could do a lot of things that we do. But it's really not a lot of money. That's why I say, without the Patreon and PayPal people and the people who come in with super stickers and super chats every day, that means so much. And without them, all those people, we wouldn't be here. But as we begin to accrue more in the way of subscribers, we then are able to get a little more in the way of ad revenue, and that means the world. And then you get momentum, and after a while, you can even do more things because you don't need to worry about survival, So really, really cool that this happened, and I'm... Did Mark finish his luggage story? I have an amazing twist on the luggage story. Wow, do I have a twist for you.
Did you pay the thousands to get it back?
I will double back to this. I will double back to this. But Kim is right. They wanted thousands to return the luggage. They said, we found it. We want 2,600, was it, or 2,100 to return? Hula Steph. How about Hula Steph? Albert, how about a big shout-out for her?
Big shout-out.
Thank you. 10 spot on this day of 20,000 subscribers. Thank you, Hula Steph. And Spencer, of course, always with us. Spencer, the $5 super sticker.
Big shout-out.
Thank you, everybody. Very big day. $5 from Pamela Kirby.
Big shout-out.
Come on, Pamela Kirby. Big shout-out. And Joe Fong with a $5. How about it, Joe?
Big shout-out.
Big shout-out. And Jim Slayton, OMG, 20,000. Yeah, very exciting. Thank you, Jim Slayton.
Big shout-out.
Yeah, big shout-out to Jim. And how about Maud Day? Maud,
Yay.
you're going to make me...
I'm not going to cry. I'm not going to cry.
I'm not going to, but I could.
I'm not going to cry.
$25,
Big
Maud.
shout-out.
Congratulations on 20 plus. Awesome. Yeah, we're very excited about it. So thank you, everybody who subscribed, who shared the show. We put up shorts and we put up videos, and anytime you see something that you can share, that helps us expand this audience. So thank you again, everybody. Super excited.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Walter says, what does he say? I'll see that. I'll see that $5 and give you our own $5. I love that. Big shout out,
Big
Walter.
shout out.
Walter's watching in Hawaii.
Yeah.
Never a bad thing.
I feel like that first 10,000 was a lot harder than this from 10,000 to 20,000. I feel like just for us to get to that 10K was really hard. And this one was
I agree. I think Albert's onto something. Yeah. It is weird that you do develop a momentum, and I'm just so happy that our audience gets something out of this. We try to do a lot of different things, not just politics, and you'll find something in here I hope that you'll like. So that's I want to get heavily into politics with John Rothmann. I do want to talk about this. I think it's bad news for MAGA Nation. Yeah, the MAGA kids are going to get smacked by a huge media buy. I'll talk to John Rothmann about that. But I also, at the same time, I want to talk to John Rothmann about the fact that Biden could be in trouble in an area that he performed well with in 2020. And by that, I mean, you may remember that Biden won, I think, largely as a result of a Jim Clyburn. He won a ton of young black voters in the 2020 election against Trump. This time, that coalition of black voters is not coalesced. It is not clear at all that Joe Biden will get that support. And I want to talk to John Rothmann about that coming up. Shadow producer Calvin Wong asked this question. PBS Frontline narrator, Mark, are you friends with that guy? No, I am not. I'm not friends with him. I will tell you that I have mad respect for him. His name is Will Lyman. Will Lyman is the guy on Frontline. I do a Will Lyman impression. Let me give you this is what he sounds. Yeah, he sounds like they start their, that's the way that sounds, Frontline starts, we'll probably demonetize it. Tonight on Frontline, 20,000 subscribers. The truth about the Mark Thompson Show. It's achieved a momentum many never would have thought it ever would. What's behind its success? The Mark Thompson Show tonight on Frontline. So that's the way he sounds, don't you think? I thought that was pretty strong. We had a Frontline producer on, and I did that impression for him. He said, "Oh my God, that's scary." I don't know him though. I do not know him, but he's very talented, and I did lose a big job to him as the voice of BMW, so that was pretty rough. Could have been some real cake, real cash, real scratch. But thank you, everybody who is tossing in with us. Thanks to Eric. How about Eric? Thanks for the most kick-butt show. Big shout out.
Big shout out.
Thank you, Eric.
Nice.
Wow, very cool. I'm very, I'm touched by this. Candace Mick, who is Hall of Fame supporter, big shout out.
Big shout out.
Yes, and I'm not going to cry, guys, but come on. Come on, this is great. We're very happy, as you might imagine. We worked very hard, and it's really cool to get. Thank you, Tom Malloy, for a two-spot. Kim's News. Then I'll get into some of that politics. As I mentioned, Hiltzik from the LA Times joins on the future of newspaper journalism. We'll do that after the top of the hour. Then I've got all kinds of other stuff, not necessarily related to politics, but related to life in America. So we continue. Smash the like button like a boss. Mark Thompson Show. Thanks for joining us.
The Mark Thompson Show.
On the Mark Thompson Show, I'm Kim McAllister. This report sponsored by Tenuta Vineyards in Livermore. Now let's start with Christopher Wray. Hackers linked to the Chinese government are moving to target critical U.S. infrastructure. That is what FBI Director Christopher Wray told a congressional committee today. He said hackers are preparing to wreak havoc and cause real-world harm to Americans as they have their sights set on water treatment plants, the electric grid, and transportation hubs. Wray's testimony coming as the Justice Department and the FBI announced they had disabled a Chinese hacking operation that had infected hundreds of small office and home routers with malware targeting infrastructure. South Carolina Senator Lindsey Graham says he wants a law changed that protects social media and internet companies from lawsuits. Here's Mark Zuckerberg testifying before the Senate today. Graham is among a group of senators grilling tech CEOs over the exploitation of kids on social media. Graham drew cheers and laughs from observers when he said social media companies were the last group he would pick to offer blanket liability protection. Meanwhile, Mark Zuckerberg did offer an apology to anyone harmed by social media.
I watched a bunch of that this morning, and it was into the frying pan for all of them. But again, there's a pattern here, right? They bring them before Congress, they throw them in the frying pan, they get fried, and then the big money associated with, well, the lobbying power of these social media companies, it's immense. I suggested it blunts any kind of real legislation or regulation. What's that, Kim?
Kim, you are muted.
You are muted, Kim, but I do see a horrible rail accident.
Oh, yes. Remember this? This is what happened in East Palestine, Ohio. Remember, this is this horrible derailment. Well, President Biden will make his first visit to East Palestine, Ohio, 1 year after a train carrying these hazardous materials derailed and caused air and water contamination. The president will meet sometime next month with residents impacted by the Norfolk Southern train derailment and assess recovery efforts, according to the White House. The president has faced criticism for not immediately visiting the town in the aftermath of this incident. Iranian-backed attacks against United States and British warships in the Red Sea apparently will not be ending anytime soon, is the word. The Houthi militants in Yemen say they plan to keep up the attacks because the U.S. and Britain are participating in aggression against their country. And the Houthis say they've been attacking vessels that pass through the shipping route as a show of solidarity with the Palestinians in the Israel-Hamas war.
The Houthis get money from Iran. The Houthis want that money from Iran. The Houthis get cred with Iran for continuing to poke the eye of the Western powers. And so that's what they do, and that's the relationship. It's a simple and far less complex relationship than the Houthis would have you believe.
Let's talk about this unbelievable case of this mom who had she's from Georgia, and she had ashes from her son. Here she is. She had these ashes from her son, and they were being sent by UPS, and they lost her 15-year-old son's ashes. Lost them. She said she feels like she's lost her son for a second time after UPS lost his ashes when she tried to mail them to her sister. Her son died in 2020 due to a fentanyl overdose. So she mailed the ashes to her sister, who makes customized cremation urns in Connecticut. She said she shipped the son's ashes from her local UPS store, and they were supposed to arrive at her sister's house by January 10th. But weeks passed, the ashes never came. They're gone. So she contacts UPS corporate services, and they say, "My bad, I'm sorry." And they offered her $135.
Oh, my God.
$135 as compensation for losing the ashes. She's refusing to cash it. She says they're worth a lot more than $135 to me. No.
That's just so sad.
Isn't it, though? Yeah, she's gone back to the UPS store to find what happened. They said they pulled the cameras to even look at where the packages went, but there's just nothing they can do. So that's it, $135, and off she goes. That's it.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Lastly, a seemingly innocent question on a Muppet character's social media account is apparently turning it into quite the support group. This is the X account for Elmo. And on Monday, Elmo wrote, "Just checking in. How's everybody doing?" That opened the floodgates because thousands of followers shared their feelings of depression and anxiety, including many people who had just lost jobs.
Oh,
so
no.
this Elmo X account is now this place for people to support each other emotionally. It's very, very.
Oh, that's so. It
nice.
took a nice turn then.
It did take a nice
When
turn.
you said it took a turn, I'm thinking, oh no, really?
No.
With Elmo in the middle?
No, it's
they
all
get-
good. It's all
Okay.
good.
All right.
Yeah. And it's nice to be able to, share your feelings online and with wine. Tenuta Vineyards in Livermore has the most amazing wine, and they're really, really nice people. They've got the Mark Thompson Why Are You Yelling Red? So that should tell you all of it, all you need to know right there. You can get 10% off by giving them a call. What you do when you call Rich out at the winery is you say, "Smash it with your iron rod."
Smash it with your iron rod.
You call them at 925-699-4576. Say the "smash it with your iron rod" and you get your 10% off. So, congratulations. Enjoy the wine from Tenuta Vineyards in Livermore. I'm Kim McAllister. This is The Mark Thompson Show.
They had to close down an entire radio station to silence him. And now, he's here. Ladies and gentlemen, Mark Thompson. The Mark Thompson Show.
Who's Mark Thompson?
I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that.
Jada had nothing to do with it.
Hey, Mark. It's George Santos here. A lot of people are telling me you're a liar.
That's pure speculation.
We're in better shape, but I don't think we're in wildly better shape.
I love it when you're angry.
Your Honor, I'd like to ask for a recess.
Where are my weed smokers at?
What do you think I'm going to say to you?
Don't talk to me that way.
That was very inappropriate.
That's not fake. That's real. Seriously, what the
I love it. It was great. I loved it.
It was wrong, it was stupid, and I'm trying to be a better person.
It's fantastic.
Whoever is producing this thing has no idea what they're doing.
The science is ridiculous.
I'm loving it. Wow, it's so exciting. Glad you could be with us on an exciting day. We passed 20,000 subscribers on this show, and we're north of 22,000 now. Really excited. The show started as a talk radio show on KGO, a huge talk radio station in San Francisco. It went away, that station, and we moved everybody. We moved Albert, we moved Kim, we moved, at the time, John Daly, all of us over here, and we still like to stay very much in touch with our roots. And there it is, 22,746 subscribers.
So we've gone 20 in the past 20 minutes. 20 and 20.
That's very, very impressive. I just don't know what to say.
Welcome everyone, the new subscribers. Hello.
Yes, new subscribers, thank you and hello. So you'll be encouraged to get to know this guy. He is a scholar on presidential history and such a brilliant mind on politics as well. He himself was a host on KGO Radio. He's John Rothmann, everyone. Hi, John.
Hi, Mark, and congratulations. Well deserved.
Thank you, my friend. Thank you so much. Really, you're a very big part of it, and we know that so many people on this day, Wednesdays, come here to see you and hear from you. And you have your own podcast, Around the Political World with John Rothmann. I'll mention it now and probably toward the end of the show, which you do daily. There's big news out of the world of Joe Biden, and to MAGA land, it has to be bad news. There is a flood of TV and digital spots in battleground states set to be the largest single purchase of political advertising by a super PAC in U.S. history. It is $250 million, this ad blitz. So it's an historic buy. Put it in perspective for me.
Well, the campaign we're going to see in the months ahead will be based in large measure on media buys. Both the Trump people and the Biden people are investing massive sums of money, and it's targeted advertising. That is to say, they want to go to places where they know their advertising will make a difference. So we were talking earlier about, or I heard you refer to, the question of black voters, the question of Muslim voters who live in the Michigan area. There are a whole series of constituencies that are going to be targeted by these ads. This, by the way, is what was done by the Russians in the year 2016, where they targeted certain constituencies to increase votes for Trump and decrease votes for Clinton, rather. So these are the facts of the way we do things. And you mentioned at the opening the hearings that are taking place now about the question of the responsibility of media companies, and the big 5 or 6 were there today. And of course, that's how they make their money. It's on these kinds of ad buys. And all I can say is everybody who wants to buy an ad should buy it on the Mark Thompson program.
Thank you.
So that,
No, but I think you're right to connect this digital world and social media world to results. It does. This targeted campaign does have results. It yields big results.
Yeah, well, I can tell you, we now have 140,000 downloads on my podcast. And the reason is because we're targeting very carefully and strategically constituencies that would be interested in Around the Political World with John Rothmann. But you're doing the same thing on the Mark Thompson program. When you have Johnson on, when you have me on, when you have Spencer Christian on, when you have people who have some connection to people, they tune in to listen to their favorite commentator or weather person.
Yeah, but let me make a distinction. I mean, you're very kind to say that we're doing the same thing, but we're actually not doing the same thing. We're producing content. I can see where it could be called the same thing. I'm trying to find content that I think people will want, as do you, as a broadcaster and someone who produces a podcast regularly. But what we're talking about, what we're talking about here is with this media buy, and what you're talking about as well is the targeting of potential customers, okay, it would be in the case of politics voters, right? In the case of my show or your show, whatever, it would be people who might want to be hearing or seeing that which we do. It's targeting them in a very clear way. So the digital marketing world, and this is one of the advantages that the digital people would suggest they have over legacy media, it's not just a mass buy. You're targeting the demographic even that you're looking for. That's exactly correct.
That's exactly right. And that is what the Russians did in 2016 in targeting people to vote. And you're going to have an interview with someone dealing with media, a very experienced media person. Once upon a time, newspapers, you remember when they were that thick?
Sure.
Now they're nothing. And the reason is because the media they don't want to go to the conventional media, which means these buys and these approaches are different. Look what happened this week to Sports Illustrated. Can you imagine the magazine that was the choice of so many? It rivaled Time and Newsweek and all the rest. It's gone. And so we have to adjust to where we are. And the advantage to what you're doing or what I'm doing is it's instant response, which is what people want. They want to have an instant analysis, an instant show, something entertaining at a reasonable rate.
The idea that this media buy will be, in this case, targeted in swing states is something that we should just spend a moment on, okay? So you look at Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Nevada, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, certainly, and you see this population of voters that is essential to actually winning the presidency.
That's right. You got to win the electoral votes. It's not the popular vote. It's the electoral vote. The swing states make all the difference in the world. And we saw that in 2016, where Hillary Clinton did not campaign in certain key states, didn't do what she should have done in Michigan or in Wisconsin, for instance. And we saw it in the last election as well, where the Democrats really put a lot of emphasis on carrying those swing states, including a state like Pennsylvania, which seemed to be a toss-up. So you're absolutely right. It's targeted marketing. It's targeted presentation, going after particular voters. And yes, special interest voters. Once upon a time, Mark, when somebody ran for president, Richard Nixon in 1960, pledged to campaign in all 50 states. And he did it. The only candidate for president to ever campaign in all 50 states in the campaign period. But what did he do? He went to Alaska 3 days before the election. He carried Alaska, but he didn't go to Illinois, and he lost Illinois. If you had a choice between the electoral votes of Illinois and the electoral votes of Alaska, what would you take? So I think that is what the whole thing about targeting is going to be. It's going to make our analysis, what you do and what I do and what Nikki does and what others in our business do, will be to analyze those targeted markets to see what the impact will really be.
You mentioned, because I mentioned, you mentioned me mentioning the black vote. You know, there's no question that Jim Clyburn kicked the door open for Joe Biden in South Carolina in the 2020 election cycle. Now, Clyburn may not be able to do that. I don't think there's that kick there. The black vote has now become splintered, you might say. And so that the coalition, as I was saying before, that supported Joe Biden in 2020 is not going to be there for Joe Biden in this next run.
I don't know. There's going to be a choice between Donald Trump, evidently, if he makes it through, Donald Trump and Joe Biden. And if you have a choice between Donald Trump and Joe Biden, I think minority voters absolutely will lean toward Joe Biden. I think that's going to be critical for the Democrats, and I think it's going to work. They're going to get huge, huge support.
You are very much in agreement with Jim Clyburn, because his view is, how can you possibly not vote for Joe Biden, comparing Biden's record and Trump's record? So Clyburn
and that's what the targeted ads are going to tell you.
Yeah.
The same thing applies in Michigan, by the way. The real concern about the area around Dearborn, for instance, which is a heavily Arab Muslim population, they were critical to Joe Biden in 2020. So the question becomes, what will they do now? And the proposition is being presented that if they have a choice between Biden, who is not viewed as good on their issue, versus Trump, who is a disaster on their issue, that the only question is whether people will stay home or whether they'll turn out to vote. So the goal will be to turn people out to vote in record numbers. And that's what will happen.
And this is what's interesting because it may affect voter turnout. So here are a couple of numbers. Polling last year in 2023 found that black voters overall favored Biden over Trump by 73% to 17%. So it's just what you're saying. It's overwhelming. But when it came to voters under the age of 34, that margin shrank. Among that slice of black electorate, Biden's support fell to 60%. Trump's rose to 28%. So in 2020, Biden won 87% of black voters, including 89% of black voters under 29 and 78% of those 30 to 34. So slippage from Biden's base would be in that younger demographic, and it could be disastrous.
Maybe. And I say maybe because there's a long way to go until we hit November. Okay. And so my suggestion to you is there are certain stable constituencies that tend one way or the other. And I believe among black voters, it's toward the Democrats. The same thing applies to Jews who will vote overwhelmingly for the Democratic Party. At least they have traditionally. So we'll see what the numbers are, but we're going to also watch the polling, not only the targeted ads, but the polling to see how the polling indicates. And of course, on election night, when we are watching the numbers, this will be a critical factor.
I want to, in my last couple of minutes, John, just follow up on this because this is a demographic question, and it really does speak to something that you know so very well, and that is how Gen Z, young millennial voters are not taking their cues from those that would traditionally be the ones giving the cues. They see these two old guys, again, two old white guys. We always end up in the same place in a system that's broken, and they, I think, in a cynical way, look at and perhaps appropriately look at much of this political system that we have in America as broken, as infested with money and with, the power of the lobby. So they're not taking their cues from traditional leaders of the party. Speak to this group, because I think they're making up a greater and greater chunk of the electorate.
I think you're right. And you can see it in the United Auto Workers, which is just a great example where Joe Biden received the endorsement, but where the head of the union said, well, the fact that we're endorsing him may not help because our rank and file may not be as wild about Biden. They may want to vote for Trump. These are all the variables that are changing in terms of Democratic and Republican competition for voters. But I have to tell you, what may dominate in the election of 2024 in the end is a vote for or against. Will enough voters vote against Donald Trump to tip the balance? Will enough voters vote against Joe Biden to tip the balance? Right now, it appears to me, and remember, we're months and months away from the final determination, there are more negatives about Donald Trump than there are about Joe Biden. But will that hold? And look, we have variables. Look what's going on in the Middle East right now. We could have a major conflagration in the Middle East. Ukraine could erupt. We have the whole question of our southern border and how that is going to move. We have to see what the relationship is between Donald Trump and the Republican leaders in the House and Senate. Right now, Donald Trump is calling the shots on an immigration bill in the House. How will that play with voters? And I want to remind you what I consider to be the other very significant issue is a woman's right to choose. Please note, I didn't say abortion. I said a woman's right to choose. I believe that a lot of women and men are going to go to the polls and say, we will not stand for that kind of interference in our lives. And may I point out, for people who say men don't really care, I disagree profoundly. And I must tell you, if the government tried to tell me what I could or could not do with my body, I would give them a flying leap. And so I think that is the whole question now. And it's going to boil down in part to issues and personalities. The one other quick comment I would make before we move on is the fact that it is clear that if the American people had their druthers, they would rather have other candidates rather than Trump and Biden. But that's the way the system works, and that will be our choice, unless something happens.
So here is Vilma's comment on that. John Rothmann, is there any chance that at the last minute Biden decides not to run?
Possible. We're approaching March 31st.
The 0 hour.
Yeah. And I would remind you, well, there's several things here. First, Johnson withdrew on March 31st. But the democratic process, that is the election of delegates, was a very different process in 1968 than it is now. But yes, Donald Trump or Joe Biden could vanish from the scene. Let me tell you what makes it most interesting for me as a political junkie. We have not had an open convention since the Democrats met in 1952 in Chicago and nominated Adlai Stevenson. What would happen? And it's a theoretical question.
And he was a great president, wasn't he, John?
Oh, yeah,
Adlai
sure.
Oh, wait a minute. That's
and
what didn't work out so well, did it?
Was that madly for Adlai? But let me just point out to you that that's the whole crux here. What happens if after the delegates are elected, there is a vacancy either for the Democrats or the Republicans at the top of the ticket? Who chooses the candidate? And of course, it's a convention. Could there be an open convention? The question that evolves, of course, is who will these candidates choose for their vice presidential running mates? We know that Biden and Harris are a team, but I can go down the list of potential Republican vice presidential nominees with Donald Trump. It's amazing. But what I would really suggest, we have to hold our fire. We will know on March 5th, which is Super Tuesday, and I'll be with you on March 6th, which is the Wednesday, where the delegate count is. So what happens if Donald Trump wins, as I believe he will, overwhelmingly in South Carolina, wins overwhelmingly going into Super Tuesday, and is the Republican nominee for president by March 5th? I mean, that he has the delegates to win. But what happens if something happens to him before the convention? Well, what happens if the indictments against Donald Trump go to court and he's found guilty, as he just was? By the way, did you get a share of that 83.3 million? I'm just curious.
Well, those are civil judgments, John. Those won't affect his ability to be president. They can find him guilty of all those things.
No. Neither will a criminal conviction. You can be convicted in a criminal case and run for president. Eugene V. Debs did it in 1920, received 1 million votes, and he'd been convicted of sedition and was in federal prison. So what I'm pointing out to you is there are variables here. I can give you instant analysis today, but what will happen tomorrow? Let me ask you the question. I'll ask you the question. What happens if Donald Trump vanishes? What do the Republicans do? Does the race reopen with DeSantis and Haley and the others who, by the way, did not end their candidacies? They suspended their candidacy.
Sure.
Why do you suspend your candidacy? Because then you can jump back in.
I think it's a hypothetical, but there's no evidence that Donald Trump is going away. I don't know why. It's not a very viable hypothetical.
I'm not saying that there's evidence. I'm saying there's a possibility.
Okay.
And the same thing happens with Joe Biden. There's no evidence Joe Biden will disappear.
Sure.
Remember, I always remind people of 1968. Who could have imagined the Tet Offensive? Who could have imagined Eugene McCarthy nearly winning in New Hampshire? Who could imagine Lyndon Johnson withdrawing? Martin Luther King being assassinated, Bobby Kennedy being assassinated, Democratic convention. Who could have predicted Richard Nixon except for me being elected president?
Those were a nation roiled by civil rights, by an anti-war movement.
And we are roiled today.
Yeah, the anti-war movement. The anti-war movement back then, that was a real voting bloc. Okay, John?
I would suggest to you that women who are very angry about the Supreme Court decision
that they're a real
massive voting bloc. Look at the 6 states, including Kansas, where the vote was overwhelming for a woman's right to choose. I'm just saying to you, nothing is the same. Everything is variable. What we do now on these podcasts is not the same as what we did on KGO. But the point is, there are always changes taking place and always developments. And that's what makes somebody asked me, what is the great American sport? Yeah, good question. Super Bowl coming to San Francisco. And I reject the notion that the fix is in, as you have heard from some of these idiots.
John Rothmann courageously rejecting the notion that the NFL has fixed the Super Bowl for Taylor Swift.
Damn right. But look at me, a profile in courage. But let me point out to you that there is a lot of misinformation circulating. The fact that Donald Trump continues to say he won the election in 2020, we are seeing the case of Carrie Lake in Arizona, who's going through the same thing over her position. So all I can tell you is that's what I love about politics. This is the great American sport. And the interesting thing is, generally, there really is a winner or a loser.
Yeah, but you know something, John, you and I differ on something immensely.
Sure.
Or unless I've misunderstood you. To me, it's not a sport. There's a real future here of this country that, and I know you feel this as well, but I'm saying I can't even delight in some of the dirty dealing that's done to win power in this country now.
I agree.
How nothing is getting done in the House.
We don't disagree.
It's obscene. And so a brokered convention, maybe it's fun for political junkies. I'd like to see things settle, and I'd like to get us back toward freedoms, basic freedoms and rights that we, I think, are beginning to lose.
All I can tell you is I agree with you, but I want you to know that is what politics is. That's why a third-party candidacy really isn't viable for anybody. You only win if you're part of an organized political party. The advantage, Donald Trump wasn't a Republican. He wasn't a Democrat. He was looking for a vehicle to give him a nomination. That's what he got. But I would suggest if there is an open convention, if something should happen that creates that, the whole dynamic of American politics will change. I'm not sure that's a bad thing. I like the idea of that kind of dynamic, but we'll see.
Yeah, I don't know. Again, brokered convention doesn't necessarily reflect the people's voice. I mean, I think you and I maybe, but
you know,
to be continued. To be continued.
Franklin Roosevelt won the nomination on a brokered convention, and I would suggest to you that was a good thing for the American people.
Sure.
So it just depends on how you view it.
It's Around the Political World with John Rothmann, his daily podcast available to you. He's with us on Wednesdays, so I'm very grateful that you make it a regular thing, John. Thank you.
I love it. I love it. And all I can say is we will know whether the Super Bowl fix is in before you. Can I just, let me just close by saying all these conspiracy theories.
Yes.
And that was my commentary this morning on my podcast. All these conspiracy theories we have to take into account. And when you ask me the question about targeting advertising, that goes right to the heart of it, and we better understand that.
Well, the Super Bowl is fixed, John, and
You just don't get it.
You don't get it, John.
You don't.
The Super Bowl is fixed, and it's all fixed for Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce. 24-10. They've already. I got the inside scoop. So, all right,
ladies and gentlemen, you heard it first.
Yes.
On
all
the
right,
Mark
John Rothmann,
Thompson
everybody.
program.
See you, John.
The Mark Thompson Show.
It was great. I loved it.
How would you handle this? We could try ignoring it, sir.
Morning.
You cannot say you love your country.
Where are my weed smokers at?
Stay at home and get baked.
Yeah. So glad this is a big day. We've passed 20,000 subscribers. We're now at 22, closing in on 23,000, 22.7. It's pretty amazing. I'm so happy that all of you have found it and that you have shared it, and we continue to work hard to give you decent content. I'm just looking at everything I've got to get to. I've got a lot of stuff to get to, but something that I've been popping off about a lot. I mean, I've kind of made it my thing on this show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
One of the most grotesque things I've seen in America is the loss of journalism in the way that so many revered journalistic institutions, newspapers, are losing audience because the papers are going under. And they're going under because ad dollars have flown from the world of newspapers into digital advertising. And there just isn't the same support in the digital world financially that you found with newspapers. And the coldest slap in the face came at the LA Times. Was it just last week?
Yep.
Big layoffs at the LA Times, already gouged by a lot of these conditions financially that I'm talking about, the new economics of news. So we put the word out to Michael Hiltzik, who I have immense respect for. He's a Pulitzer Prize winner. He writes on business for the LA Times. And he just understands things like the economics of a changing world when it comes to media. But he also works at the LA Times. So I felt he might have some additional perspective as well. How about it for Michael Hiltzik? Hi, Michael. You can bring Michael into, there we go. Thank you. You're a Pulitzer Prize winner, I might add, and I'm very proud that you occasionally cruise through our world. What the hell's going on with media in America and with the newspaper business?
Well, as you pointed out, there's a bloodbath going on, and it's not just the LA Times, but we've seen really stringent cutbacks in the Washington Post in recent months. The Baltimore Sun, where I have a lot of friends who are former editors and staff members there, and just got sold to some right-wing, lunatic of a businessman who basically is remaking it into some sort of far-right rag. Luckily for Baltimore, there's an online alternative there called the Baltimore Banner, which is led by one of my former colleagues here at the LA Times, Kimi Yoshino, and she's done great work in making that basically a useful alternative to the Sun. But she's got to grow her audience substantially, and she's doing that. But that's that. We've seen cutbacks at Time Magazine, really across the whole, and at the New York Times too. We, really across the whole spectrum of national, regional, and especially local newspapers.
Will you take me into part of the economics of this? I was making the point the other day that in the case of the LA Times, you have a super rich guy who came in sort of as an angel, it was thought initially, and picked up a paper that, again, you don't buy a newspaper to make money particularly. He seemed committed to kind of an objective editorial approach, and you found the same thing with Bezos in Washington at the Washington Post, where he was hands off. He said, "Look, I'm not going to affect the editorial bent or strategy of this newspaper, but I'm happy to help." I don't know if that we could talk about that, whether that panned out. But in both cases, and this is my point, you have deep pockets who've come in. These are super rich guys. They don't need the money per se, but they also don't want to lose the money, clearly, and that's why there are layoffs in both places, and in big places like the New York Times where they are in the black.
Yes, you're absolutely correct. Look, we knew that Patrick Soon-Shiong, who's a billionaire doctor and scientific researcher, he has very deep pockets, and Bezos, of course, has very deep pockets. But neither of them really committed to an open-ended, infinite series of losses, and they bought in, and their intention really was to help the Post and the LA Times get breathing room to find the next strategy, a winning strategy that would basically carry them through. Like every other newspaper in the United States and many across the world, we are still searching for that strategy. It's been very difficult, and the landscape is constantly changing. When Patrick Soon-Shiong came in, it was before the pandemic. The pandemic clearly had an impact on revenue, and then we had the Hollywood strikes last year, which also cut deeply into revenue. I mean, the LA Times has always relied quite heavily on advertising from studios, record labels, television producers, and what have you. And that went away for a long time. So it basically hurt the bottom line. And like Bezos, Dr. Soon-Shiong is basically looking for a way to retrench so that we can move ahead. He's made it very clear, at least explicitly, and we don't think this is just lip service, that he's in the LA Times for the duration. He's not considering selling. He's not considering bailing out. And that in itself gives us some stability. But we're, as I said, we're all still looking for the strategy that will save us.
Somebody asks here, do other dailies that are still in print have the equivalent of SF Gate? It's clearly the advertising arm of the Cron. Is that financially effective? Is that a strategy?
Well, we have LATimes.com. The Washington Post has WashingtonPost.com. Every major newspaper has an online arm, if that's and that's what SF Gate is. I mean, I go on SF Gate regularly, and they do generate revenue, but they don't generate as much revenue as has been lost to print. And I can tell you, I've been at the LA Times long enough to have lived through every layoff that we ever had in the company's history, and that dates back to 1995. So, And we basically have seen a sequence of shocks to traditional revenue sources for newspapers. And back in the 90s, it was the loss of classified advertising to classified advertising publications, and then eventually to the web. We were told that we really never really had a sense, at least not at the time, of the magnitude of this change. But I certainly had colleagues or executives telling me that this was going to be a fundamental issue for us at the LA Times and for the newspapers, and that's proved to be correct.
I mean, the same thing is being played out. The dance is being done in television and radio and legacy media. You've written about this, Michael Hiltzik. You've written columns about this. So we see the flow of money. But the one thing, when I mention the LA Times, I get this, I'm telling you, I get a torrent of, well, it's a bunch of libs, and, you know, if they would report the objectively instead of a liberal bent. I'm looking at the LA Times. So I care. A massacre that killed 6 reveals the treacherous world of illegal pot in Southern California. This is from the LA Times today. He opened a medical pot dispensary in California. The Fed spent 16 years prosecuting him. Universal frustration in California, a crisis so dire, Republicans and Democrats are working together. These are just a few of the headlines. There's no liberal bent to this. This is what's going on. California's next big storm. When, where will it rain, snow, and flooding? I mean, so...
Yeah, this has been sort of a far-right trope for years and years. No, we don't have liberal spreadsheet to tell us what to write or when or how. The problem, the fact is that reality has sort of a liberal bent to it. People think that the LA Times is excessively liberal. First of all, these are people who are not reading the newspapers, and they say that. I mean, I get emails from people saying, I don't read you because you're too liberal. Well, then how do you know? And frankly,
I don't read. That in itself is great. I don't read you. That's how I know that you got a liberal bent.
If you're concerned about the partisan bias of the LA Times, I would refer people to the LA Times of the 1930s, 40s, and 50s, when it was incredibly reactionary. And even going further back, it was outrageously anti-union because our owner, General Harrison Gray Otis, was a sworn enemy of unions in Southern California. The LA Times, if you look at the way we covered the gubernatorial campaign of Upton Sinclair, who was a socialist running as a Democrat for governor in 1934, the lies that the LA Times and other newspapers in California told about him were outrageous. We don't do that. We strive for an objective view of reality. I'm an opinion writer, but when I write my columns, I march the facts across the page. I give citations and links to all of my source material. Anybody can judge it. And I get this all the time. You're just another liberal shill. Well, this
the liberal
this
bent
is judgment coming from idiots.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I mean, it just is sort of a regurgitated line that is based on nothing, meaning they don't look at the paper. I mean, I look at the paper all the time, and especially with this in the back of my mind, I'm trying to always going, I just don't see it. I mean, the editorial page, when they endorse a candidate, that's different. You can say, I disagree, or that's clearly, but that's not the paper. That's not the rest of the paper.
Our editorial page has, a couple of columnists, a few columnists who are certifiably conservative. I mean, we publish
That's right.
Jonah Goldberg, and if I were king, I wouldn't. I might not be as welcoming to him, but nevertheless, that's balance. But
so the future. This is the breaking news here from you today. For me, is that there is a commitment to continuing the LA Times. I saw those layoffs and I thought, oh my God, this is. I'm worried about. I think great journalism is done at the LA Times. I've cited here just off the top of my head that big DDT dumping story that you guys did. There's a major investigative thing on the legal profession that you guys did. You're doing them constantly. That work. Where are you going to get that work on done on local news? No, I watched local news this morning. It was a warehouse fire, a car caught fire. These are things that television likes because it's a fire. The reality is, I think you must have a strong newspaper in major cities. Otherwise, journalism really goes south.
Yeah, look, we lost something in the neighborhood of 100 members of the staff in this wave last week. That's about, I'm told 20% of the staff, and that's a lot. But that means that there is still 400 some odd very talented reporters and editors, people whose work I admire. I wish I had done some of it because some of it is so good. And yeah, if you look at the paper just today, there's just an enormous amount of compelling material to sink into. And that's because there's still talent that we have working with us. And I'm proud of my colleagues. And I wish more of them were still with us, and maybe some will come back as the smoke clears. But yeah, look, as I said, I've lived through every layoff in Times history. They all share some common features. One of which is that they're painful, they're emotional, they're terrifying. I thank my maker that somehow I have survived them all, but in some cases it was a near thing, and over time I've seen a lot of friends and very talented journalists be forced to move elsewhere or choose to move elsewhere.
Yeah. Al says, thank you, Hiltzik, for maintaining integrity of journalism through objectivity. There you go. There's a pro-Michael Hiltzik vote. And somebody said something here, and he's a regular on the show, and it bummed me out. Here, Spencer says, all big newspapers have become too political. They're dead. I don't know what that means, Spencer. I mean, the fact is, politics, this is a key election cycle, and politics is a part of the world. But here's the LA Times. I'm looking at it. This is on the front page. He opened a medical pot dispensary in California. The Fed spent 16 years prosecuting him. It's a great piece about how the federal government has been after this guy for running a medical marijuana dispensary. What does that have to do with politics? You know what I'm saying? I mean, I think I'm kind of with Hiltzik on this. It's kind of like this is sort of like we default to these things. Oh, it's all too political. Oh, it's too left. It's not, I don't know. Spencer, take a look at the paper.
Well, what they're really saying is they don't mean political in the sense that the word really has a definition. They mean partisan.
I see.
And they're being fed this guff from Fox News and OAN and whoever else is out there. I mean, maybe they're spending too much time on Elon Musk's Twitter. And they're getting this impression, as I said, they're not, they can't make the case that the LA Times is, quote, too partisan if they're reading it. So,
right.
And look, these are people who, in the great mass have a loud voice, but they are a minority. They're a minority in America. Most Americans really actually have what we would call progressive views of major issues. Most Americans favor abortion rights. Most Americans would like to see stricter gun control. Most Americans are fine with the LGBTQ plus community, and I think most Americans, to the extent they spend any time examining the facts, are against the sort of bludgeoning of gender dysphoria treatments for young people and adults that we see in right-wing red states. And, I'm happy to be in California because we don't see a lot of that. And when we see it, we fight it.
Michael Hiltzik can be read in the LA Times. I love having you cruise through. Usually we're talking about some issue, but this one I think is so critical. And I wanted to get to it, and you're a great authority on it. So I hope we'll visit again, and we'll talk about many of the things that you touch on in your, as you know, I'm a fan of your work and your column. And Michael Hiltzik, I'll remind everyone, we went to the same university, which makes me Pulitzer Prize adjacent, everyone. Yes.
Under my Michigan sweatshirt, I have a Colgate t-shirt.
I thought of you when Michigan did well. Whenever Michigan, you're Michigander. You're not really a Michigander, though, are you? Or are you?
No, my son went to Michigan. So,
I see. Okay, all right. Now he's got the Colgate.
I'm glad that all the money that I spent finally yielded a victory.
But if it comes down to philosophy department, if it comes down to that's when Colgate wins. All right. See you, Michael. Thank you. Michael Hiltzik.
The Mark Thompson Show.
I feel a lot still ahead. I know. It's crazy. Did you know that Joe Montana is getting into the weed market? It's kind of exciting, I think.
Where are my weed smokers at?
He's not smoking. Maybe he is. He's definitely investing. Joe Montana, handsome, talented Joe Montana, is winning the California legal weed market. That's his latest win. His trophy may be this gold hemp plant that he holds above his head, Albert, triumphantly. The way he hoisted the Lombardi trophy. You know, it could have happened. His venture capital firm, Liquid 2 Ventures, was an early investor in the weed startup Nabis, which is a cannabis distribution company founded by a pair of tech engineers. Today, Nabis, again, Joe Montana's company that he's invested in, has quietly become one of the most successful pot companies in California, selling hundreds of millions of dollars of weed.
There's never been anything like this.
Yeah. So Joe Montana, I'm not saying he's holding, I'm not saying he's carrying any weed on him, but he's definitely living the life of a guy who is heavily invested in the state's weed economy. Joe Montana, good for you. Wow.
Winning on and off the field, Mark.
Winning on and off.
Feels great, baby.
Yeah, all right. Kim's news.
Yes.
And then I want to actually touch on a couple of things that
you have to pay off your luggage story. Your
oh yeah,
right.
I will tell you the luggage story. Yeah. It's unbelievable. For those who are new, I went on vacation. This cruise ship lost the luggage. All I had to do was get from the. It was landed. It was docked. It's not like it was put on a bus to a hotel or a truck to here. No. All they do is take it, and I didn't want them to take it. They insisted that I leave the luggage outside the room, tagged in a special way, and they would move it 80 feet from the room to the dock. And when I got to the dock, it was not there. I will tell you what they have asked.
Oh my gosh, this is like a ransom, Mark.
It is like ransom. Albert and Kim knows the story as well. They are right about this. Smash the like button like a boss.
It with your iron rod.
And we'll do some news from Kim.
Yeah.
I'll give you a little luggage story. And then Trump. Can I get a chunk of Trump in, Albert? Because I've got Trump. There is good news in the world of Trump. He has some good news. Everybody's talking about he doesn't have the money, blah, 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 blah. I get it. But I have some news that actually will land well, although I don't know, given the needs of Donald Trump financially, which clearly are increasing with every court judgment, that this piece of good news will be that good enough. But it is still good news for MAGA Nation and their leader, Donald Trump. So I'll do that after Kim's news. Smash the like button as we continue. Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
On the Mark Thompson Show, I'm Kim McAllister. This report sponsored by CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. We'll head to interest rates because we know now the Federal Reserve is holding interest rates steady. The decision delays any rate cuts to later in the year. The Fed meets again in March. So as of now, it's staying the same. Yeah, this is House Speaker Mike Johnson, who says a bipartisan border bill expected to pass the Senate is dead in the water in the House. In his first floor speech as Speaker, Johnson accused the Biden administration of trying to shift blame for the border crisis to Congress. President Biden said he would shut down the U.S.-Mexico border if given the authority by Congress, while Johnson said the president doesn't need congressional authority. This is going on today in the Washington, D.C. area in the Senate. This is Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg, who apologized directly to the parents of children harmed by social media during a Senate hearing about online child safety. And you know, we love a good apology here on the Mark Thompson Show. This one occurred while Republican Senator Josh Hawley of Missouri called on Zuckerberg to apologize to the families sitting directly behind him. Here's Hawley.
Would you like to apologize for what you've done to these good people?
I think that might be a drop. Let's hear it again.
Would you like to apologize for what you've done to these good people?
Oh, yeah. So Zuckerberg turns, faces the families, and here's what he says.
This is why we invest so much and are going to continue to make sure that no one has to go through the types of things that your families have had to suffer.
Yeah, that your families have had to
suffer. Sort of the non-apology.
My bad. I'm sorry.
No, I mean, I think that was a non-apology. There's no "I'm sorry" in there, right? It's the reason we're investing so heavily in the sorts of things you're seeing here today. Oh, that's not an apology. That's a pivot.
It is a pivot. But the Hawley one, that works.
Would you like to apologize for what you've done to these good people?
That is a brilliant drop. If you're listening, Trevor Starr in Hollywood, formerly Trevor in Oakland, and rather in Concord, please send me that as a drop. You're right.
I think it might work.
I mean, it might be up there with the...
Hey, Mark, it's George Santos here.
it might be up there with that.
A lot of people are telling me you're a liar.
Yeah.
Oh, no, not a liar, no. Let's talk about Alina Habba. Here she is. She's maybe making her last move as the lawyer for President Trump. She's backing off a conflict of interest claim against the judge who presided over E. Jean Carroll's civil damages trial against Trump. And they're saying this might be Habba's last official act as attorney for the former president. Trump posted on Truth Social he's considering hiring a new law firm to represent him in his appeal. A jury awarded Carroll $83 million in total damages there. Maybe he's not so happy with the job she did. Can't imagine why.
Well, she was really in over her depth, or in over her head, out of her depth, however it's said. She was not, she was not up to this. You can see why he likes attractive people. She's an attractive person. So I think he was thinking with the part of him that likes attractive people.
Not the other part that doesn't want to pay $83 million.
Right.
That part, yeah. A prisoner exchange between Russia and Ukraine is underway. More than 200 Ukrainian service members were returned in exchange for 195 Russian soldiers. That according to officials from both countries. It's the first swap since the fatal Russian military plane crash the nation said was carrying 65 captured Ukrainian soldiers. So this ongoing. There is a 60-year-old woman hospitalized with pretty severe injuries after she was rescued from a garbage truck. Really, really bizarre story of this woman who was in a dumpster when the garbage truck came by. Here's a little picture just in case you need to visualize this whole thing. But the authorities say
very few good things happen when you're in a garbage truck.
No. Authorities say the woman was not identified. She was in a dumpster near an apartment complex in Manchester, New Hampshire, when the truck picked it up and dumped the contents into the trash compactor. Manchester Fire Battalion Chief Bob Boudet telling the Manchester Ink and Link the compactor ran up to 4 times before a sanitation worker noticed this woman via the truck's camera system and called 911. The woman reportedly told the firefighters she was tossing trash into the dumpster when she fell inside of it and got stuck there. It's unclear how long she was trapped in the dumpster before the garbage truck came by and picked her up.
Wow. What a bizarre set of circumstances. Yeah.
I'm telling you.
My God,
I mean, I can't even imagine how you think your life's flashing before your eyes as you're being dumped into a garbage truck. Ugh. Did you hear what's going on here? This is a pair of billionaires reportedly buying the Baltimore Orioles. According to multiple reports, Orioles owner John P. Angelos has agreed to sell the team to private equity billionaires David Rubenstein and Mike Arrighetti. Major League Baseball still has to approve the sale, with the owners scheduled to meet next week in Orlando. So there you go. And speaking of billionaires and money, Elon Musk might not be doing so well in the money department right now, because they're thinking maybe he's making a little too much money. What? Yes, apparently you can make too much, and that does not sit well with Elon Musk, who wants all of his money, you know. This judge in Delaware is voiding the $56 billion pay package of Tesla CEO Elon Musk. The judge ruled the company's board of directors failed to prove the compensation plan was fair. Musk responded on X saying, "Never incorporate your company in the state of Delaware."
Oh, he's turned on the whole state.
Yep, that's it.
Normally, that's where you do incorporate your company,
Right.
as everybody's aware, because they
Right.
have very generous setups for corporations.
Apparently,
But-
when you're fleecing your company for all the cash, they turn they frown upon it.
They're not.
What can you tell us about the scene?
Elon's not happy with it, Larry. He doesn't like Delaware
What can you
anymore.
tell us about the scene?
Yeah, he wants his money.
This report is sponsored by CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. They have tea, too. I'm drinking the hibiscus tea today. It's tasty. Great for a rainy day. I feel like I'm in the tropics a little bit.
Kim puts the high in hibiscus tea. That's what I
really
like about
do.
that.
Where are my weed
No,
smokers
I'm not
at?
saying she's high that way. I think
Party in the Mark Thompson newsroom.
yeah, just a little. There's there's a bounce in her step. I'll say that. I don't know what it is.
You too
But-
can have the bounce in your step by going to Coachella.
I don't know.
Going to CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. Check it out. Look at the teas. Look at the coffees. It's a lovely thing to do for yourself. To check out the good stuff at CoachellaValleyCoffee.com and save yourself 10% while you're at it. It's an exclusive Mark Thompson Show discount. You just put in Mark T at checkout, get your 10% off, and away you go.
Ricky says the Coachella Valley Sumatra is his favorite.
It's good stuff.
I tell you what, they have a lot of tasting notes on there. You can kind of pick out the thing that you like the most. I really believe you'll be very happy, and definitely get that 10% discount code Mark T at checkout.
What are you drinking today?
I'm doing, you know what? I'm doing the Ocotillo espresso. I ground some of it for pour over, and then which is really like going off script, and then I ground the rest of it for espresso. I mean, at least in this. So there are two shots of espresso in here, and then the rest of it's pour over.
Did you
It's
really
delicious.
just do that?
I know. I really went rogue, but
Wow.
it's delicious. Delicioso.
CoachellaValleyCoffee.com.
Riquísimo.
Yes. That's right. I'm Kim McAllister, and this is The Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Who's Mark Thompson?
Feels great, baby.
Let me kick down the door and talk to my cheap sons and daughters.
No context will suffice to explain the hurt and anguish caused by my words. I apologize to all who have been hurt.
I stand corrected. I misspoke. My words upset so many people.
And I wanted to apologize to the Asian community, the Asian American community.
God bless America. The end.
There's never been anything like this. Do I hit it long? Is Trump strong?
Who is having that conversation?
It's fantastic.
That's not fake. That's real.
The science is ridiculous.
How would you handle this? We could try ignoring it, sir.
If you get it in order, you get extra points.
Listen to me. I don't want to hear you.
You cannot say you love your country.
Where are my weed smokers at?
This is a word from the Lord, and he's not happy.
There is no defense for my conduct. It was wrong, it was stupid, and I'm trying to be a better person.
Don't ever use that word.
You get nothing.
What's a guilty pleasure to do that?
Seriously, what the
What's up, everybody? This is our big finish. The next 25 minutes, the last part of our show, packed with stuff. I've got a chunk of Trump upcoming for those who just can't get enough of the man who cares about the future. Not Donald Trump. He leads MAGA Nation.
There's never been anything like this.
That's right. He's the wrongly accused, dragged in every court in the land for all of this.
I think I'm the most honest human being, perhaps, that God ever created.
Exactly. It's a crime, Mr. President. It's a crime. There was a word out of the Trump White House that I'll get to, as well as a bit of a donation that Trump and MAGA world did receive, and a notable tattoo that I hope you have a picture of, either Albert or Kim, related to the former president. Before I get to that, I want to mention a big move by someone who used to be just a guy on a reality show, kind of a reality show, Real People it was called. Byron Allen has now become a media mogul, and his latest takeover bid is for Paramount. He's offered $14 billion and a 50% premium for voting stock to acquire Paramount. Paramount is, I believe, the parent of the CBS broadcast network, cable outfits like Nickelodeon. If you actually look up everything under that Paramount, or if you have Paramount Plus, it'll give you a sense of that landscape. It's pretty vast. And Byron Allen, he's a full-on media mogul, now offering $14 billion to pick up.
How did he make that money? That's a big chunk of change. 14 bill.
Well, he's actually made some tactical and strategic acquisitions prior to this one that, are in that same category. The answer to your question is he syndicated a series of shows that were sold to stations, and he was able to almost arbitrage that. He was able to wield off of that, borrow against it, and build an empire. He had to be smart about it. So the guy's clearly got something. But beyond that, he was able to leverage the sale of programming to many stations. And that's syndicated television, when you sell from individual place to individual place. It's not on a network. You're selling it, just like syndicated radio. I mentioned just like syndicated radio because people are, I think, familiar with that in that radio world. Those talk radio guys who have, Sean Hannity, or remember, he's on in San Francisco, he's on in Chicago, he's on in New York. Those are individual sales. So there's more money in that if you can do it. He leveraged off of that. And this is super long story short. He was able to amass a fortune. And he purchased the Weather Channel. This is not the first thing that he's picked up. Yeah, so if you actually go look at Byron Allen's world, it's an impressive one, and he is an impressive media figure. And his latest move is to go for Paramount for $14 billion. Yeah, if you Google Byron Allen, you can see some of the stuff that he's done. So anyway, that's pretty big news. So
the Mark Thompson Show.
I mentioned for those who just sort of follow that kind of thing. Are you ready with the chunk of Trump, Albert? I don't like to rush you into these things, but are you ready, sir?
I'm standing by. Yes, I'm ready.
You standing by at your post? Are you? Okay.
Albert, thank you.
All right. they like it. The kids, they like it when we do it, and so we do it. This is your chunk of Trump.
Open wide.
Ready?
Here comes your chunk of Trump.
It's my favorite food.
With your first bite, here's Mark Thompson.
I have a feeling it's going to be beautiful.
I've got good news for Trump and all you MAGA people. I've got good news for you. Because Donald Trump, as you know, he's taken on water when it comes to legal judgments. He's taken on water in terms of just paying for the lawyers to fight the legal judgments. Well, hotelier Robert Bigelow telling Reuters that he gave Donald Trump $1 million specifically designated for his legal fees and agreed to donate another $20 million to a pro-Trump outside group for campaign purposes.
What?
I wish all of you who are supporters and viewers of the Mark Thompson Show, friends like hotelier Robert Bigelow is to Donald Trump. Here's $1 million for your legal situation, and here's $20 million to this outside group dedicated to electing you president.
Tom wants to know, is Bigelow the tea guy?
Bigelow is a... He owns Budget Suites of America.
Oh,
he's a
okay.
hotelier, okay? Hotelier fefeels like a ding word, doesn't it? Sort of? All right.
It feels fancy. I don't know.
Yeah,
about
fancy,
dingable,
exactly.
but-
These commitments show some big money is flowing into MAGA Nation. So even as we started the show by telling you and discussing all the money that is going into the Joe Biden world and with the targeted digital ads to which we've referred in the last hour, to go back and find that, we talked about them with John Rothmann. Be aware that MAGA land ain't hurting for money either. Donald Trump has a lot of money flowing in to his coffers as well. And he also has support from someone who you might not think would be a supporter. I mean, just looking at this rapper Lil Pump, I don't know that you necessarily put him in the Trump camp, but indeed he has been. He's been an outspoken Donald Trump supporter. He endorsed Donald Trump. He endorsed him in 2020, and now he's endorsing him again. And he doesn't stop there. Lil Pump, the Gucci Gang rapper, shaved his thigh and debuted a huge tattoo of former President Donald Trump's mugshot. And he picked it up in England, where they do
There's never been anything like this.
Mugshot tattoo work. Lil Pump, again, has been a big Trump supporter, and he's posted on Instagram both the picture that you see there and also his remarks, which were essentially, I'm trying to think of how I can he said, Trump 2020, bitch. That's what he said.
Nice.
Yeah, right.
It's really
So,
uplifting.
it's, I'm just saying.
I'd be willing to bet my lunch that there's alcohol
I don't
involved.
think so. I think this is just blind loyalty.
Actually a pretty good tattoo, because when I was looking up Trump tattoos, wow, are there some real doozies in the world. I'm telling you. I was like, whoa, there's some good tattoos and there's some bad tattoos.
That's very funny.
Let me share with you some of the worst ones. These
are all Trump tattoos that people have.
These are Trump tattoos. I mean, there's some Trump tattoos that maybe...
That's not awful. It's kind of cartoonish. It's color. That's
bad.
That's not flattering to Trump.
That's not flattering to anybody.
Yeah.
Here he looks like baby Trump.
I don't know. That's a weird one. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how you like that one, but this one's not so bad. The one on the left, I don't know.
Yeah. Wow, there's a Trump tramp stamp. That's unreal.
Right?
Very impressive.
I mean, sometimes
Go up for a second. Go up for a second. Go up. Right there on the right. Keep. Oh, maybe I missed it. I thought I saw. Never mind. Okay, don't sweat it. I thought I saw something.
This one's kind of frightening.
Wow, that is scary.
Yeah,
that's
wouldn't want
complicated and shaded, etc. But it's that's from a British roofer, apparently. That person. And
that one's bleeding from the eyes.
Gosh, there's some really intense takes on Donald Trump.
Wow.
All of a sudden, I have to say that the rapper, the rapper doesn't look so bad anymore. It looks like
it really
a
doesn't.
Pretty tame.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Can you
there's
believe,
one as
look at
Superman.
this fellow. This fellow has it on his head. Trump on his head. Oh.
Yeah, I'd say Lil Pump, his definitely looks better in view of these other ones. So
totally. Anyway, that's my Trump tattoo rabbit hole.
Very impressive. Very impressive crew. Thank you for rounding those up. And that, I wish everybody, honestly, a friend like hotelier Robert Bigelow to give you $1 million to help bail you out of your legal trouble and $20 million more to help you get elected president, and a friend like Lil Pump who loves you so much that he gets a tattoo of you on his thigh. So may all of you get a friend like those two. That is your chunk of Trump.
That's it for this edition.
Well, I really enjoyed it.
But make sure to join us again next time
I think you might want to listen. There's nothing wrong with listening.
for another chunk of Trump.
There is a major mayoral race going on in the city of San Francisco, believe it or not. Yes, I know. It seems like a city that has all of its problems solved. Why would you even need a mayor anymore? I mean, everything works so well. You don't need to worry about your stuff getting ripped off or people shooting up in public or peeing in public or defecating in public. You don't need to worry about these things. But still, they want to run a mayor. All right. Billionaire mother of San Francisco mayoral candidate has also donated $1 million. It's donate $1 million to your candidate week, everybody. And this is the mother, Miriam Mimi Haas, of candidate Daniel Lurie's. It's his mom, and she donated $1 million to him. The I guess they have billboards up for him. Haas's donation, it's reported, could be the largest made in support of or in opposition to a single candidate in San Francisco history.
When you come from money, they're not messing around. I think they have something to do with the Levi Strauss.
Exactly.
heir.
They're heirs to the Levi Strauss fortune. That doesn't, I know people hate rich people and all the rest, and we all want to be rich, but we hate rich people until we are rich. I guess that was the point. But anyway, Lurie is founder of the local anti-poverty nonprofit called Tipping Point Community, and hoping to unseat San Francisco Mayor London Breed in the November election. He says, look, the city's in crisis, and it needs new leadership. He's also campaigning against, is it Safai? Asha Safai, District 11 supervisor. So all of that's going down, but he's got a little bit of a push from his mom with $1 million donation coming from Mama.
I want to be mayor. Yeah.
Well,
Give me money.
To be fair to him, he has been an activist and worked. But you're right. It definitely is like, Mom, do you have to be so high profile about it? Everybody thinks now that you're just supporting me.
The Mark Thompson Show.
No. The Taylor Swift thing is bizarre to me. What is Albert? It's kind of like you're the commish. What's going on here? The Taylor Swift Travis Kelce MAGA meltdown is bizarre.
There was a because the Republicans are upset that she might back a political candidate that's not Trump.
Well, there are conspiracy theories of all sorts. That Taylor Swift is a secret agent of the Pentagon is one of them, that she's bolstering her fan base in preparation for her endorsement of President Biden's reelection. Do you think she needs to bolster her fan base?
I don't.
Or that she and Travis Kelce are a contrived couple assembled to boost the NFL? Or COVID vaccines? This is all coming out of MAGA world. Or Democrats. Ramaswamy, we told you about his thing. He's sort of suggesting that it's all fixed. I wonder who's going to win the Super Bowl next month, Vivek Ramaswamy said. Vivek Ramaswamy, how does he keep track of all the conspiracy theories that he signs on to? And as I've told you before, just because it's a conspiracy theory doesn't mean it wasn't really a conspiracy, okay? So I'm ready to hear actual conspiracies, but I'm also ready to call BS when something is BS. Calling the NFL rigged in order to spread Democratic propaganda. That's one of the broadcasters, is a pro-Trump broadcaster, claimed that in his latest. Alina Habba, as you know, the Trump lawyer that Kim was talking about, she's launched her own conspiracy theories. Charlie Kirk, who leads that pro-Trump youth organization, Turning Point USA, he has his own. It's insane.
Conspiracy theories are like the new thing. You have to have one now or you're not hip. You got to come up with your own unique conspiracy theory.
Wow.
Yeah, you need your own Stanley water bottle. And
that's right.
Conspiracy
theory.
It's the new America. You got to have all that. Stanley water bottle and a conspiracy theory.
And if you're lucky, and if you've really tried hard to think of a great conspiracy theory, maybe it takes off and goes viral, and you can be like, I was the one that...
I see.
I do have a couple conspiracies also cooked up in case my Niners lose. I'll save that as my break glass in case of emergency, if that would happen.
Albert, thank you.
You know, Albert, I will tell you as the commissioner, if you're new here, Albert is the commissioner of sports on this show.
Albert, thank you.
I have a sense that the Niners really are going to win. I really do. I have a sense that they're really going to win. And I don't get that much.
It feels like we haven't even played our best this whole playoffs, and we've been winning. So imagine if we could bring it all together. That would be great.
I'm usually racked by insecurity. Yeah, but...
No, I just need a couple of conspiracy theories, and don't worry about it.
Yeah.
I mean, the one that I'm really afraid of is the Travis Kelce proposing. In case they win in front of
propose. I don't
millions.
think he'll propose. That would be so cheesy. I don't.
It would be. It would be very cheesy, but that's what I'll run with.
You think?
He is a little cheesy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Tropicana in Las Vegas is going away just because we're talking about sports. It's going to be demolished to make way for a Major League Baseball stadium, which will be home to a team that we know, the A's. They will be the Las Vegas A's. And the Tropicana, more than 6 decades there on the Strip, it's going to be shutting its doors and making room for this $1.5 billion Major League Baseball stadium. It's, the Tropicana used to be one of the places. It was called the Tiffany of the Strip. And now it's not. And
what is it now?
It's, it's...
the Walmart of the Strip?
It's just, it's not exactly packing them in anymore. There's going to be a 30,000-seat ballpark there with a retractable roof. All 30 Major League Baseball owners gave their approval for the A's to move to Las Vegas, as you know, and that is where they will set up.
Sayonara, sucker.
They're backed by $380 million in public funding, and the rest of it is, put up by private concerns. And if you're wanting to go stay at the Tropicana, no longer accepting hotel bookings after April 2nd is the... Could be worse. It could be circus, says Heather Kennedy.
I'm trying to find this video of John Fisher. It was like some event, and they introduced him. It was in Las Vegas, and he got brought up, and there was nobody cheering for him. And even the announcer was like, hey, everybody give it up. Is that all we got? And it was very awkward, and nobody's cheering for it. I don't think Las Vegas is even happy to have a baseball team.
Yeah, it's just weird that the support... I mean, they will be happy, but I'll tell you what's amazing about Vegas. They have a football, hockey, now baseball team. They're the real thing. They're going to get a hoops team. Don't you think there'll be a basketball team there? Some kind of...
I think the Las Vegas Aces in the WNBA, they have them currently. But and with so many events happening, like All-Star Weekend from the NBA in Las Vegas, it would make a lot of sense.
No.
There's also odd rules in Vegas because the Super Bowl is also in Las Vegas. The players aren't actually allowed to go to any casinos. That's illegal for all NFL players involved, or even not involved. And they're not allowed to step in a casino or make a bet. on anything about football.
No gambling at all.
Luggage, says Kathleen Bryant.
Oh,
okay, yeah, let me do that before I...
The Mark Thompson Show.
Luggage. Kathleen wants me to tell the story, which I will do briefly just to bring everybody up to speed. I went away, first major vacation. It was 3 weeks in length, and I was on a cruise ship, pluses and minuses to cruise ships, and I can get into that another time. But anyway, that's where we were. We end up in a place called Valparaiso, which is in Chile. It's a port town there, and that's where we're getting off the ship, and going out to Santiago, Chile, where we were spending some time. But anyway, at that destination, they tell you at Valparaiso, they issue a memo that says, put these tags on your bags and leave them outside of your room, and they'll be waiting for you on the dock when you get off. That way you don't have to haul them off and down that small, gangplank or whatever the thing's called that you walk off of the ship. So that's what I did. Courtney did not. She said, I'm just going to work with mine, So she had this big bag, and I'm thinking I'm the smart guy because I did what they asked. Get down to the dock. There's no sign of the bags. They get rid of it. Oh, I'm sure they're here. Blah, blah, blah. They're not. Don't worry, sir. We have a 95% recovery rate on bags. Oh, great. So I did feel better. That was a good thing to hear at the time. I checked the website. They refer me to a website. It just says lost item. No, still can't find it. Still can't find them. I thought, it'll be probably at my hotel within a couple of days. Nothing. Come back to America. Nothing. Yeah. Missing. Finally, after 30 days, they say, we've found your bag. Now, first of all, there are 2 bags, so I was a little concerned. I didn't know. And I was excited, although by then you've begun to replace things. I had all of these, I bought a bunch of stuff I overpacked. That's why there were 2 bags. I had rum and wine and gifts also that were in there. So they said, click here. This is kind of a big deal because I've been waiting. I'm thinking, okay, now I got to go through claiming it through insurance or whatever. And we can mail it back. I put in my address, and I click on FedEx, and it says, okay, credit card for the shipping costs, which were $1,160. And that was just for 1 bag.
That's crazy.
Both bags, the shipping costs are and continue to be just under $2,300.
That is robbery.
So they're saying, we found your family. If you want them back, you have to pay this money. It's really a hostage situation in a sense. We found your bag. We lost it. No fault of your own. Like you followed the prescribed requests, the processes, protocols, and standards. And then we lost it. But now we found it, and we'll return it to you for a little over $2,000.
We have processes and protocols and standards.
So there is actually a click that you can execute and say, don't return them. And I think that this whole thing is a game to get people to click that.
Yeah.
Because who is going to pay that kind of money to have virtually any clothes returned? So I clicked, no, return it. Take the money and return it, and I'll deal with you later.
Uh-huh.
I want to get the bags, and I will deal with them later. I'm a guest on a cruise line. The cruise line lost the bags, and now the cruise line is charging me that kind of money to get the bags back? This is not the last chapter here, but that is the current chapter. So
did they say
now you're up to date?
Do they have both bags and they're sending them back, or did you click pay and they're like, our bad, now we can't find them?
Supposedly. No, I mean, they've charged a credit card for the money. So
I'm bad.
I know they have.
I'm sorry.
But this is bizarro, and I don't think it's not a straight up scam. I've talked to the David Katz can sue them.
We need to talk to David Katz about this. This is an injustice.
It is an injustice, but it is it exists in a world of injustices. So I don't know that there's much we can do.
New milestone. We're just 22,800.
Wow! How about that, everybody? Thank you, everyone who subscribed to this show and also has supported the show in all the different ways that you do. Albert will be here tomorrow.
Albert, thank you.
And Kim will be here tomorrow.
Kim, how are you?
We have a great show tomorrow. Tomorrow, Belinda will be here as well with It's the Planet Stupid. I also have a really wild Law and Disorder, and it's quite relevant. So I hope you'll be here for that. Also tomorrow, David Katz. He is the former federal prosecutor, now working the defense side of the table, and we'll sort out a lot of Trump stuff and more. There's more going on at the Supreme Court that I want to talk about. So,
I'm Shadow Stevens for the Mark Thompson Show. Bye-bye.
It was a great day, passing 20,000 subs.
Out of time. Bye-bye.
After party's next. Thanks, guys. Till tomorrow. Bye-bye.